Hey, welcome back to another Black City Coffee vlog. In this video, we're going to talk about roasting darker. You guys saw that I've been kind of messing around with roasting darker. We had that profile from Mill City Roasters, and I was trying to copy that and have a solid like 4-minute first phase, 4-minute second phase, 4-minute third phase. Which was, I didn't nail it. I was dealing with a coffee that I think didn't allow me to nail it. Or I think I could have. I just needed to, I think, charge higher, and I talk about it in that other video. I'll link that video below if I remember to. Remind me if I didn't. Basically, what you're trying to do with darker roasts is have enough energy to move throughout the roast without scorching or tipping, and having a pretty even cooking or roasting of the bean for a longer period of time versus a medium or a light roast, right? And the reason why I say that versus a medium or light roast, or more accurately, I should say, versus your medium and your light roasts, okay? Because every roastery can have like their own standard or their own style of roasting. Like, for example, I gave this example before, like a light roast for Onyx coffee, for example, which is very, very light, almost tea-like in body, right? Versus, say, the light roast over at, I don't know, over here. Maybe some of my light roast could be darker than theirs. That's all I'm saying. So different roasteries or roasters will have different styles within light, medium, and dark, right? So like my dark will not be the same as Starbucks dark. This is for NDS organic coffee. So you asked me, I told you I'd work on it. I told you I'd share and work on this video for you. You said medium dark roast most of the time gives me a tough time. Medium and light roasts are as good per my reflection, but here comes the medium dark. And basically what he's showing me, I'll throw it up on the screen. Basically it's after first crack. It looks like you're having a little bit of trouble maintaining or controlling your heat application throughout the end of the roast, or the third phase of the roast, which I could see where that could be really frustrating. You have a lot of sad faces, going into second crack a little bit more. So how I approach darker roasts, and if I were to roast a coffee that, like I didn't show you guys like roasting something dark, like say that is a fresher coffee. So for example, the Rasuna. I think I only have samples of a dark Rasuna at this point because it's not that popular, so I'm not like roasting it all the time. But definitely how I would approach a dark roasted coffee that is fresh. So I'm not roasting a coffee that's super old that could take off on me, meaning that it could take on heat a lot quicker than say a fresh coffee that has a little bit more moisture in it, or a lot more moisture in it rather. I don't think I have that data available for you. And in my RoastPath, I can't backtrack to when I have done it, that I could show you guys. It actually only shows me a window of roasts, and then it stops there. So I'm at like 300 some roasts in my profiles, and I don't keep track or document or backtrack or anything like that, older roasts that I may have done. So as I'm looking in my RoastPath, I don't have any well-documented examples that I could show you currently right now as I'm making this video, but I'm sure it'll come up. But I'm not about to roast dark if there's no request for it, and I wouldn't want any leftover for myself, because honestly, dark roasts go bad quicker just because they've been roasted longer, so they have less, like, I guess, material to go bad. In a way, like that's a rough idea of thinking about coffee and in terms of storing them. But basically, to get to my point, which is to approach a darker roast, you would start off with more energy than say a light roast. More energy meaning a higher charge temp than your light roast. Generally, okay? So here's how I would approach a fresh coffee, Rasuna, for example, an Indonesian coffee that we have here. I think you can order it a medium dark or a dark medium or whatever it is. I could show you let's just pull up the darkest roast that I have. Not that Vietnam that I made content on for fun. Okay, Here's that, Vietnam. I have a full city Rasuna. This one I think is a good example. RoastPath 368. I'll share this link in the description. So if we're going for that, you know, the target in mind or the goal in mind is a 4-minute, I'm trying to be in the range between 4 minutes in my first, second, and third phases of the roast. We need more energy. This coffee in particular is a natural coffee, so I don't want to charge too high because natural coffees have a tendency of absorbing more heat very quickly versus, say, a washed coffee. Plus, the elevation of this coffee isn't that high, which means the beans are not that dense, and that means they could easily take on heat and scorch and face and all kinds of stuff. Tip is usually my problem, straight up. Okay, so the charge temp that I've decided for this approach on this Rasuna, and this is all like theoretical kind of, and then just this example I think is just going to be a good like teaching material for you. At some point somebody's going to order it, some medium dark roast, and then I'll have that real data to show you, but this is all going to be in theory, okay? So take this with what you will. I'm going to start off with a 360 charge temp because I'm going to go into the dark territory. I'll call it a dark medium or a medium dark. Whatever. Okay, so I'm going to charge at 360. I'm not going to soak, just because I know that my machine does well or does okay with not soaking, and I want to get to dry end or green to yellow transition within like 4 minutes 30, something like that, kind of like what you see on the screen, right? So we get to dry end at 4 minutes 29, and that's you won't see this when you're roasting. You won't see the actual percentage yet. It won't be accurate yet until the actual roast is done. Then it will like percentage out or whatever. So let's go by time. And certainly by temperature and look and all that stuff too. So you're still roasting with all your senses, right? You're looking at the beans and going, okay, is this green to yellow transition? Is this yellow? Am I going to call this yellow or dry end? And then hopefully all those numbers and the visual and the smell, you take the try or smell it if you can do that. Do all of these boxes check off for myself. Cool, let's call it. All right. 4 minutes 29, boom. I hit the button for me. I increase the air to 50 or medium airflow. And then I'm going to come down in my fuel, which has been at max fuel. I'm going to come down to maybe like a 1.5 for me. And a 1.5, I don't have my thing here right now in front of me, like my little gauge, but I would come down to 1.5 kPa for me, all right? And that's like, what, almost 50%, more than 50%, something like that, fuel. And then here comes the tricky part for me, which is maintaining enough energy throughout the middle of the roast, because I still need energy for the last part of the roast. I want at least 4 minutes in the middle roast. So I'm going to be slowly coming down in my heat. I'm not going to be touching air that much, but I'll be watching the ROR curve drive its way downward. Not too much, not going this way too much. I have my RoastPath to calculate every 30 seconds. Most people have it calculated every minute. Watch that thing drive along and then use the behavior of the ROR curve to determine how much you're going to adjust your heat. If you're on a hot top, this information is not going to be as one-to-one, obviously, or for anybody, but you're going to have to predict with a premeditative action, like 10 seconds or even 15 seconds, whatever your delay is, you're going to just have to compensate for that if you're being on the hot top. I hope that makes sense, okay? Because your machine is electric. It's not that powerful. So you have to counter that by making moves earlier. Oh, I think I said that correctly. Okay. All right. So we're coming along. We're approaching the right temperature for your typical first crack. Maybe something like 375, 380, something like that, right? It should be in that range for first crack. And you should be approaching like a 4 minute middle phase. So check, we got this here on this example, 4 minute 14. In that middle phase, I'm starting to hear my cracks and whatnot. I'm gonna call first crack at 4, or first crack was what? At 8 minutes 43 at 369. Okay. And again, you know, these probes are just saying what they say. We don't know if that's an actual true number, but this kind of lines up with all of my previous roasts. It's okay, it doesn't look wonky or off or anything like that. Now, this roast that I'm showing you on the screen, I developed it only to, this is like a full city, right? So a medium roast. So in order for this to be classified as a dark roast, I would need to stretch that last phase for a good 4 minutes, okay? Now, how do we do that? So at first crack, what I typically do is I crank my air max because I want to flush any of this smoke, steam that's coming off of the bean. It's going to be cracking and doing that thing. And then I'm going to counter any kind of crash in the ROR because it's letting off all this extra steam and energy and stuff like that. And I'm going to turn up my fuel depending on the behavior of the ROR, maybe to like 1, maybe 1.5, maybe 2. Who knows? The ROR is going to tell me how to manipulate my fuel. Okay? I'm going to want to stretch this guy out, and as long as I'm paying attention to that ROR curve and manipulating my fuel in turn or appropriately, then I should be able to stretch out that last phase. I've done it before for a good 4 minutes, and say I'm listening for a second crack, and that's usually what can happen and at this time, because you're going to be reaching into the, for bean temperature, maybe like a 400, 12, 20, something like that sort of temperature, whatever temperatures that you typically get at that time frame. You'll be right there at the fuel application. I think this is going to be pretty tough for hot top users to kind of get it because of that delay that you have to deal with. But if you're practiced and you just know your machine and you've been roasting on your hot top for a long time, you just kind of know your machine, because that's basically what happens, is like you just get to know your machine and how it works and how to make it do what you need it to do. You could probably do it, okay? So don't be discouraged. And if you don't nail it, just try again and nail one phase at a time. And so by the time we reach that sort of tailing end, we got our 4 minutes in. We're looking at the beans, making sure, you know, it looks good, it's not scorched, got good development, nice and plump, checking all the boxes, and then we can drop our coffee, okay? So, but in order to do this roast, what I think is really crucial, and if something messes up at the end and you don't have enough energy, it could be your charge temp, okay? Maybe because you don't have enough energy to kind of pull you through. And if that, you know, is like solid, you're like, Meg, I know it's 360, it's got to be 360, then you can move on to the next maybe thing that you could address or fix, is just your management of heat after dry end. So that middle phase, it's like kind of can make or break the next one, right? So you've got to nail one phase at a time. The middle phase can get tricky if, say, you know, even if I wasn't roasting that old coffee, that old Vietnam, like let me pull that up, that 2019 Vietnam coffee that I'm trying to roast dark, right? And we only got a 2 minute 48. We almost reached 3 minutes with this coffee in the middle phase, but quite a bit, like, just if we cross-sectioned it, it's probably not as developed, right? So I ended up finishing it a little bit longer in the end and going with a 5 minute 30 5 minute 30 third phase, right? So, but you know, we made it happen. And if I taste it, I'm like, yeah, this tastes dark. I would need somebody here who was like a dark coffee connoisseur to come and taste this coffee and be like, bro, this is way underdeveloped, there's no sweetness, which I would suspect that's what they would say. But anyway, I think my charge temp was too low here in this example, so we couldn't really play that much. I mean, I got there. I got to the finish line in a way. I'm a minute over. I don't know. I'd call that a C effort. Maybe it passes. Yeah, you're going to need enough energy to carry you through the roast. That's really important. Oh yeah, and then I think when I look at this roast and I think about and try to distill the lessons from this roast and try to impart that to you, is like, you need to come down in heat after green to yellow transition or dry end enough to where the heat can't get away from you. Especially, like, I should have known this, but whatever. Like, especially an older coffee that can absorb a lot more heat quicker, easier than, say, a washed, fresh coffee. It would have been able to withstand my typical heat application in the middle phase and not get away from me like this. But I was using an older coffee because this was a random, make it super dark coffee. I was like, I don't want to use my Rasuna for that. They don't care about that. So I'm using this older coffee, right? So that's what I would say. You need enough energy at the front of the roast, so a higher charge temp possibly. Okay, and then coming down and managing the heat in the middle phase and making sure that you're still going to have enough heat so you don't crash or crash in your last phase. And what you're really trying to do is get 4 minutes, 4 minutes, 4 minutes within that range, right? All the while still monitoring and doing all the other things that a roaster does, roasting with all their senses. So it's a challenge, and you'll get it. You've got to just take copious notes, see what you're doing. Like NDS Organic Coffee, you've sent me plenty of roast curves that look like this, where after first crack, the ROR is going all wonky, okay? So there's something going on there. You are the only one who's going to be able to diagnose and fix the problem because you're right there at the roaster. You got to look at everything that's going on from start to finish, even if you have to. I don't know. I hope that these videos are empowering you guys to break down your own process, your own standard there that you have at the roaster, from from the greens that you choose to the environment that you roast in, and be able to cherry pick and diagnose the problem for yourselves. I want to empower you to actually do that. That way, you don't, that you can go to yourself at the end of the day after some diligent research, note-taking, and experiments, and cupping for sure, to make your coffee the best for you, right? It's so hard for me to be like, yeah, this is what you can do. One, I don't think I'm qualified to do that, but I can definitely share just in my own experience for sure, right? But my intention for you guys is to empower yourselves, learn how to find what the problem is because you got inspired or you got an idea from these videos. That's cool, because I do that with a lot of other content creators too. And then I go fix and diagnose the problem and build myself another skill. Cool, I know how to do that now because X, Y, and Z, right? So I would start there. And if you're still not nailing it or you're still coming up against a wall, tell me exactly what you are doing after dry end or at dry end or green to yellow transition. Tell me exactly what you are doing. Or, because we'll see what's going on there. And then after that, if you feel like that's cool, I got that in the bag. I don't know why you keep asking me about dry end. Okay, what are you doing when first crack happens? What's going on there, right? And it's not like you have to tell me. I'm just telling you, like, to ask yourself, like, what am I doing at first crack? Am I cranking the air up all the way? Am I lowering the heat too much? What is going on, right? And write all that stuff down. That way when you go to the next one, you go, I think it was this. Okay? Because you have to be able to take really good diligent notes. That way on the next one, it's not just like I guess I'll try this. No, it's like looking back at what you did in the past and going, I think it was the charge temp. I think it was the air. I think it was this, whatever. That crash from my software, I wrote that down in my notebook, but then I still proceeded to do everything else the same. Okay? So, diligent notes, experiments, and then going back and kind of like, you know, working your way back. And the path to progress, or success even, which could be equated as to, you know, progress is success to me, is this. It doesn't look like this. It looks like this. Because you have to go back, right? You have to go back and be like, what did I do? All right, let's go again. Go back. What did I do? That was really good. Let's go again. Oh, it's better. Let's go back. What did I do? Something was off there. Let's go again. Like that. Okay, so that is the path to progress, unfortunately. It's like a slinky, okay? Doesn't always feel good, but then when you nail it, it feels really, really good. All right, so keep at it. Thanks for sending your questions and watching. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.